We are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining London Business School and INSEAD Part 3. But you can actually take this presentation as a general MBA interview process presentation because I'm going to speak a lot about the MBA interview process, which is quite similar in many schools. It's a bit different in some, but you'll get the gist of it. So thank you very much for joining. A bit about myself. My name is Shimri Winters. I am a London Business School alumnus. I have a computer science degree, and post-MBA, I went to work in consulting. That's a bit about me. I used to, as an alumnus, interview MBA candidates for London Business School for about 8 years. I work at ARINGO. I've been working here for 10 years now. I'm part of ARINGO's strategy team. Who is ARINGO? This is my only marketing slide. We are a boutique MBA admissions consulting firm, which helps candidates like you get into top MBA programs. We start with a chances estimation and help you with school selection, all the way to the interview process and the scholarships, etc., etc. So that's what we do. Okay, so this is actually kind of a part 3 of this London Business School versus INSEAD presentation. And in the first part, I discussed more of the statistics and, like academic curriculum, where do alumni work, what do you learn, how long is the degree, things like that. So if you don't know London Business School and INSEAD, I think you should start with that. That makes sense. In this, somewhere down here, you will see links to the part 1 and to the part 2 presentations. So that was the part 1. And in the part 2 presentation, I discussed more about the actual application. So I discussed the CV, one of my favorite discussions. What does it need to look like and what do you put inside? We discussed the essays, the recommendation letters, and the difference between these 2 school applications. And if you've researched the schools, applied, hopefully you've reached part 3, which is the interview process. So in this presentation, we'll discuss London Business School and INSEAD, but actually you will see that most of this presentation discusses alumni interviews, which happen at London Business School and INSEAD, that happen in 95% of the other top business schools in the world. So you could probably use this information for nearly any other MBA interview. So let's dig in. Again, we'll discuss the processes, the differences, and it will be a very practical presentation, I hope, because I'm going to give you tips on how to answer interview questions. So as you can see, I'm very enthusiastic about this topic because it's actually one of my favorites. As I said, I used to interview for London Business School as an alumnus, and I love preparing candidates for interviews. I love this topic. I've seen many mistakes, so I hope to take you through it, the do's and the don'ts, etc. So let's start. Here's my coffee. I'm relaxed. I'm going to try and talk fast because there's a lot of material to cover. You can also ask me questions on the chat. This is a live YouTube if you're watching it live, and I will try and answer questions. Okay, so let's start. In most schools, when we look at most top business schools, there's actually 3 stages, processes. The first one is you apply. Okay, you submit your application. The second stage is they decide if you've passed to the next stage, which is usually an interview. And the third stage is kind of decision stage, rejection, or hopefully an offer. So London Business School and INSEAD are no different. They have the same stages, but they used to have some kind of video interview stage. So at INSEAD, I'll start with the bottom one. At INSEAD, you submit your application, and then you receive a link to submit some kind of video interview. So it's kind of part of the first initial admissions application. And at London Business School, it's a bit different. Only if you're selected for an interview, then you do this video interview. Okay, so again, it's a bit different. London Business School, it's part of the interview stage. At INSEAD, it's like part of the initial application. but it's kind of the same. So you submit your application, then you do a video interview, which we'll discuss, and then you do an interview, and then you get the decision. So it's quite similar to what we discussed before, just as kind of this extra stage. So what's the difference just between the interview stages? So like I said, there's this video interview. London Business School, you only receive it if you get to the interview stage, to the one-on-one personal interview stage. At INSEAD, everybody does this video interview. There's a few differences in the actual video interview. INSEAD have 4 questions, London Business School have 2. We'll discuss them in 1 second. Next slide. And there is one difference. INSEAD are one of the few schools, HEC Paris is another one, that do 2 alumni interviews, and London Business School does 1. It has some kind of presentation, which I'll discuss in 3 or 4 slides. So let's just talk about London Business School video interview. And like we said, this is a stage that you will receive only if you pass to the next stage. If you've been selected for a face-to-face or in-person interview, you will also be receiving a link to a video interview. Now, what you see here, the prompts, the questions are true for 2024. They might change. So just check out, if you're watching this video not live, just check it out. You'll find out this information once you receive the interview at London Business School. So London Business School basically have 2 questions. And the first one is known. It's kind of what will you gain from London Business School? And the second one can be one of many behavioral questions. So it can be about a team member, a new culture, tell me something new that you learned, tell me about diversity in your workplace. There's lots. I put here lots of questions. Again, you can just pause the YouTube and read them. We won't go through all of those because we'll talk about the main questions. So what is this video interview? And actually, I want to kind of discuss it first. What are London Business School even looking for? Why are they doing this video interview? So first of all, remember that when you interview with alumni, London Business School admissions aren't there. Okay, so they have a problem interviewing thousands of candidates, same with INSEAD, same with many top business schools. So they're sending their representatives, usually alumni, to interview candidates. And they're not there, and even if we video this interview, they're not going to watch an hour of interview time thousands of candidates. They just want the brief from the alumni, was the candidate good, bad, did they pass? Was he good on certain things? Are they concerned? So they basically want the summary from the alumni. But this video interview, and it's very short, actually gives London Business School adcoms an opportunity to see who you are. And it sounds strange, but in the past, London Business School and other schools received perfect applications, amazing applications, and 800 GMAT perfect scores. Oh, I saw today an 805 perfect GMAT score. But then when they came to interview candidates, the candidate didn't speak English very well. Or, something was a bit suspicious with this candidate. I'm not going to say they cheated, but, something was suspicious. This guy wrote perfect essays, got an 800 GMAT score, but I don't know, doesn't speak English very well or doesn't articulate himself or herself very well. So this is a chance for London Business School kind of to review, just to see who you are. So it's less about what are you answering. It's just more who you are. Again, they're not testing your English. They're not testing your accent. They're not testing... Even the answers here are not the most important thing. It's kind of just to put, let's say it's to put a face with your application. And it's very helpful because when you read an application, you kind of have in your mind, oh, this person is, I don't know, they're very energetic or they're a bit dry. And they probably talk very fast or not. And then when you see the video, it kind of all makes sense. And it kind of gives London Business School adcoms a picture about you. So I think that's the purpose of the video. I wouldn't put too much emphasis on this video. It's more of this is just get to know you kind of stage. Okay, so how do you answer these questions? First of all, the logistics. I think they're pretty obvious, but every time I talk to candidates about them, they kind of say, oh, thank you for telling me. So I'm just going to tell you, obviously, this is a video interview. So check out your webcam, your microphone, your speakers. I talk very fast. I'm very enthusiastic, but talk a bit slower. Make sure the space behind you is white. I always talk from my room, but make it white. Dress professionally. People ask me, do they have to wear a suit? You don't have to wear a suit, but some buttons in the shirt would be nice for men. Whatever the woman equivalent for that is good as well. And try and look to the camera, and just remember, this is a professional interview, so stay calm, and just try and talk, calmly. Again, it's very short, so there isn't that much time to do. You can practice before you answer questions, obviously, and we'll talk about using frameworks. We'll talk about this in length in this video. And what I would do is practice the common questions. You can find the list of common questions on our website, aringo.com. It will be at the beginning and the end of this video. And you have the hundreds, let's say, of video essay questions that you can practice. But there's kind of the usual ones, which is kind of about your leadership and probably about diversity, and maybe about your career goals. These are pretty usual ones. The first question at London Business School, which is a known question in advance, they kind of ask you, what will you gain from London Business School program? And remember, you've already applied to London Business School, so this is quite similar to essay number 1 at London Business School, which asks you the same thing. Why are you applying to London Business School? This changes from candidate to candidate. I can't help you answer this question, but I've given you here some ideas. I think you want to go to London Business School because you want the education. You probably want the business education foundation. Maybe you're an engineer that wants to become a product manager. Maybe you're an accountant that wants to become a consultant. I think the actual education will help. Maybe the international network. Maybe you want to speak about London. You want to connect it to your career goals, future employers, whatever. There's no right answer here. Maybe some of these factors. You only have, like we said, the ground rules. There's only 90 seconds to answer. So, you can practice this answer in front of the mirror or record yourself. So that's the first question. And the second question, again, is very hard. And I'm going to try and address some of these questions when I talk about the alumni interview section. So that's a bit about the London Business School. Now, the alumni interview, so that's the big, important interview, usually is conducted by an alumnus. It can be performed by an admission committee member, someone that works at London Business School. If you receive an ADCOM member, this doesn't mean that you were red flagged or green flagged or whatever. It's quite random. So usually alumni interview, but again, if someone from ADCOMS interviews you, that's fine. At London Business School, executive MBA, ADCOMS usually interviews. Master in finance, master in management, MBA, usually alumni interview. Sloan program also usually ADCOMS, but again, this can change. So we'll cover kind of a lot of questions and do's and don'ts in the INSEAD alumni interview section in 4 or 5 slides. But I did want to point out that London Business School also has a very unique stage. By the way, you can ask questions all the time. And I'm looking at the chat in case there are any questions. And also, if you want to introduce yourself and tell me which school are you planning to apply to, that will help me. So I'm looking at the chat all the time. And if you want to introduce yourself and tell me if you've applied or planning to apply this year or next year to London Business School or INSEAD, I would love that. So what I was going to say is, good, and now I can see also the comments on the chat, so thank you for that. That's great. So what I was going to say is London Business School also have a presentation stage. This is a unique component for London Business School, and I'll just talk about it now quite briefly. So what is this presentation component? So at the end of your alumni interview, which we're going to discuss in length in about 3 slides, there's also a presentation component. What is this presentation? Basically, the candidate gets a prompt. They get about 5 minutes to prepare. Again, this is in the alumni interview. And there's 5 minutes to present this prompt to give your answer. It kind of assesses I put here critical thinking, but it kind of puts you on the spot. Okay, it's going to ask you a question that you couldn't prepare for. Okay, why are bottles of water shaped in this way, or whatever? Okay, like it's not going to be that question. I'll give you a better example, but it's something that it was very hard to prepare for this kind of topic. And they just want to see kind of, how do you do this? Maybe a problem-solving skill, maybe a marketing question, but they just want to see how you tackle a new question that you couldn't prepare for. There's no follow-up, there's no discussion. This is just to see how you tackle this kind of presentation, this question. Okay, so here are a few tips. First of all, you have 5 minutes, no panic, even if it's a question, and usually it's a question which is very far from your industry. You might be an oil and gas expert, and they will ask about the pension fund investment strategy. They might ask about pharma drugs regulation in Mexico. Okay, like something that you know nothing about. First of all, it's fine. We have to focus on the process of the answer, on the structure of the answer, and try and give a few good ideas, a few good bullets for the answer of this question, and you should be fine. So I put here like a structure, and the structure is quite easy. There's an intro, there's some kind of analysis, kind of this is what I think, this is what I suggest, maybe a solution, yes, this is what I suggest to the issue, and maybe some kind of conclusion. Okay, so beginning, answer, and some kind of summary. Okay, I think that makes sense. And you can practice this. Okay, so let's give an example, a very long example for this presentation, which is a unique stage for London Business School. If you're watching this video, but you want to talk about other interview questions and what to do, or for INSEAD, you just need to skip this slide and we're going to get there. So this is a very long prompt. I will read it to you just so we're all on the same page. Julian Birkinshaw, Professor of Strategy and Entrepreneurship at London Business School, says encouraging workers to come up with innovative ideas and products will help business to stay youthful and competitive in the market. Sounds good. Multinational firms such as General Electric and Unilever have offered divisions devoted to nurturing innovative ideas for decades. And here's the presentation. This is what we want from you. Drawing upon your own experience, how would you promote innovation within an organization? Please provide 3 ideas which you think would help cultivate creativity within a large company. Okay, so it's quite a long prompt. Think about it a second, let it sink. Meanwhile, I've actually drawn under the important words here. So there's this professor, Julian Birkinshaw. He's quite a star at London Business School. He has some ideas how to come up with innovative ideas, or he wants to hear your ideas, to make a company competitive. And what I found interesting was they were asking, drawing on your own experiences, find 3 ideas to promote innovation. Okay, so take this big prompt and just understand what you need to do. I need to come up with 3 ideas and give some of my experience on how to promote innovation. Okay, much easier than this very, very long prompt that might take me 1 minute out of my 5 minutes to prepare to even read. Okay, so how do you answer it? Maybe you remember we had 3 or 4 areas to answer the structure, which was present the presentation prompt, answer, give a few ideas, and in the end, give some kind of conclusion. So here, I've decided to present it. Here's my presentation. Julia Birkinshaw. He has some innovative, this is an example. This is my answer example, I'm sorry. These are the words we marked above, yes? So Julian Birkinshaw, he's looking for innovation. You want to give some your own experiences and 3 ideas. Okay, so here's the answer example. Don't forget to close your phones when you have a presentation. It's very important. Very important. Okay, sorry about that. Here's the answer. So first of all, here's the answer. I'm starting with this kind of background. I'm starting with the presentation prompt, right? I was tasked I was tackled with the issue. Okay, so first of all, explain what you're going to talk about. So in this case, I was tasked with presenting 3 strategies to fostering innovation. Okay, so give a background to what you're going to do. Second of all, outline your ideas. Okay, so again, I don't care really about the answer. I more care about the structure because, like we said, the answer here is going to be less. This isn't going to be the question you're going to get. This is a real question from about 7 or 8 years ago. So it's not the real question you're going to get. So in this specific case, I kind of gave, okay, my strategy would be kind of a cross-functioning team. I think that sounds good, like to get a guy from marketing, a guy from strategy, a guy from development, and a guy from security to sit together and think about the next drones. Okay, maybe some kind of platform to pitch ideas. I don't know, maybe I'll have a very old way is to have a letterbox outside the CEO's door for ideas, right? A suggestion box. Okay, but that's a structured way to get ideas. Maybe there'll be a different way. Maybe every Wednesday, one of these teams is going to pitch an idea. Okay, and maybe I'm going to also decide that there'll be an incentive for creativity. Whoever pitches a good idea gets 3 days off. Okay, whatever. And what do we do at the end? We kind of conclude. Sorry, very important. Sorry, you see, I forgot. So that's good that I wrote the prompt up here, and I wrote my own experience. And then you can say, so I've actually seen 2 of these 3 ideas in my company. I've seen the cross-function team, and that worked very well. And actually, 2 or 3 ideas in the last year came out of that team. I also saw a structured way to pitch the platform because every Wednesday we're doing meetings and we're pitching them. What I would like to see is, more, kind of recognition. And I think that would help people to actually think outside the box. So, here I connected it to my experience, and then I concluded with results. Okay, to conclude, I was asked to present about, and I presented. And that's it. So the whole presentation is about knowing the framework and knowing how to answer this presentation stage. Okay, it's not a hard question, just need to know how to answer the presentation. That's it regarding the presentation. Now, let's just talk about INSEAD's video for a second, and then we'll dig into the main part of this presentation, which is the alumni interview stage. So I'm reminding you that INSEAD, once you submit your application, then you need to submit your video interview. Don't worry if you don't know where this is. You will get a link that tells you, what to do and where to submit it. The video interview at INSEAD is a bit different than LBS. A bit similar, but a bit different. At LBS, there were 2 questions. INSEAD has 4 verbal questions. I think LBS had 40 seconds to prepare and 90 seconds to answer. Here, there's 45 seconds to prepare, but 60 seconds to answer. Okay. All you can do is just prepare, like we said, prepare the common answers. If you get a question that you didn't prepare, it's fine. Just try and answer it. They only want to connect the dots with, this person in front of them, the person that wrote the essay. Okay, so try and give. I put here some lots of kind of tips, but again, like I think the last one's important. Like, don't stress. It's okay, even if you don't know the exact answer, there's 4 questions, just try and do your best. It's fine. This isn't like a test of the actual interview, which can be an hour long. This is just to kind of connect the person that wrote the application with a face, with a character, a face, etc. I put here some kind of tips. I think the most important ones here are kind of to practice, try and be genuine. Try and show some kind of experience in some of the questions, like say, oh, that's an excellent question. In my firm, I actually had this issue with one of my managers and I tackled it by, okay, something like that. And that's it with the video interview. Again, it's quite an easy stage. Look on our site. We have hundreds of practice questions there. You can check them out. Okay. INSEAD also have one new component, and it's kind of a written component. And I think you get 5 minutes to write. There's no length here. There's no word limit. And again, it's very similar to the video interview, you kind of get a question that you couldn't prepare. And the reason here is, they want to make sure it's you, and they want to make sure kind of you can think, out without preparing something, can think quite quickly of an answer. So all I can say here is just structure your response. Okay, so it's not just about what you answer, it's just try and be very clear on the way you're answering the question. And then articulate 2 or 3 or 4 main points to answer the question. 5 minutes goes very quickly, so of course, try and keep it short, and just make sure you're checking your grammar or your spelling, so there aren't any, silly mistakes. Even if there are a few mistakes, it's not a big deal, but, there isn't something serious. So I would spend maybe 3 or 4 minutes writing and then kind of 1 minute checking it. If you type quite slowly, if you're not very good at writing English from some kind of reason, that's okay. Just keep it short, okay? And that will help you. No one said this has to be more than 1 or 2 paragraphs. So that's regarding the London Business School video interview and the INSEAD video interview. I'm watching out for the live chat here. So if you want to say who you are and which school you're applying to and what stage you're at, have you applied yet or not, please do. I'm also here to answer any questions. And now we're digging into the main part of the presentation. And again, you can take this presentation towards nearly any business school interview that you have. So if you've received an interview, yay! I'm very excited for you. Check out our website, aringo.com. We have lots and lots of interview questions there and interview tips and whatever you need. First of all, yay. Okay, breathe. This is a good sign. This means the schools read your application and liked what they read. This is a very big screening stage for the school. So nearly every top business school, there will be more applicants who don't receive an interview than do, again, in most business schools. So this is great, and you can have a mini celebration. Obviously, this is just stage 1, but it means your application was good. Now read the instructions. I know it sounds strange. People have missed instructions. Okay, sometimes emails go to spam, but sometimes people just got so excited they missed the part that they had to click somewhere to schedule the interview. Or they missed the part that it said, here's your interviewer, be in touch with him directly. Okay, so just read the instructions. Then usually you will get some kind of way to schedule the interview. Now, I left these slides quite broad for all business schools, but at London Business School, the interviewer receives your entire application. So that's an example where you don't need to send anything, but you can ask the interviewer, would you like me to share with you my application or my CV? Again, in some other schools, interviewers don't receive anything, and then you can share with them at least your CV. This is something which is probably important during your application, but it's definitely important during your interview. Google yourself. At least check your LinkedIn, okay? The LinkedIn needs to be aligned to your CV, to your application. So if in your CV, you're the CEO of Coca-Cola, this better be written in LinkedIn as well. Because if on LinkedIn, I'm going to see that you do something else, that's going to be very suspicious for me. It's okay to research the interviewer. It's okay to check them out on LinkedIn. If you're working with ARINGO, we have intelligence reports on many interviewers. You can ask friends. I'll talk about it a bit later. Don't push too much. So if you know the person through someone that knows someone, I would be really careful in kind of trying to drop your name in front of the interviewer too much. Definitely prepare for the interview, which we'll talk about in the next slide. And maybe think about questions that you want to ask the interviewer. Maybe there's something in common. If you're both lawyers and he did a transition to private equity and that interests you, you might want to ask about that. Maybe you want to ask about partners at London Business School or INSEAD or any other school. So definitely prepare some questions for the interview. You can also prepare some questions for me. I'm checking out the chat. If you have any questions, we'll answer them at the end, but I'm here for you if you want to do that as well. Okay. So what do interviewers judge interviewees on? This changes from school to school, but the interviewer does have some kind of form that they need to fill out on the candidate. And the form will have a long table of traits that they're looking for and different sections that they're looking for. But I think I tried to put here, like, to generalize most of the important things. So the first one is fit. Okay, schools are looking, full-time MBA programs are looking for candidates which have 2 to 12 years of experience. If from some kind of reason, after 2 minutes, the interviewer discovers that you don't fit that kind of criteria, maybe you have 20 years of experience, don't know how that got messed up, and you got an interview, you're not going to be a good candidate for London Business School or INSEAD or most full-time top MBAs. So that was just an example. Maybe your profile just doesn't fit properly. You didn't do something interesting enough. Maybe the values are very different. So the first thing is they want kind of to check, do you fit what we're looking for? Maybe your caliber, your years of experience, Second of all is your communication skills. MBAs are a lot about team cooperation, both in the classroom and in study groups and in clubs and just beyond class, for the entire community. This is something very important to make sure that you can talk to someone, and probably that you can talk to someone from a different background than yourself. They might test a few critical thinking, by using some critical thinking questions. It's not a consulting interview. I don't think they're going to ask you how many tennis balls were sold in Germany in 2020. Okay, I don't think it's going to be some kind of guesstimate like at McKinsey, but there might be some real questions that they'll want to see how you think. And motivation is something very important also in the application stage, but also in the interview. Do you really want to come to this school? I'll discuss this later. I've seen examples of candidates who told me at the end of the interview, like, if I don't get into Harvard, I'll really be happy coming to London Business School. That's the wrong answer. Yes, you want to show that you really want to come to this particular school. And I know this sounds a bit strange, but authenticity is very important. Okay, if at some stage the interviewer will feel that you're bullshitting, okay, that you're lying your way through this, that's a big problem. Okay, they want to see that you're genuine. They want to see that what you wrote in the application and what you're presenting in the interview is true and relatable. So I think those are kind of the key things that most schools, and definitely London Business School and INSEAD, will look. As an interviewer, I always used to look for something else. And I have to admit, I didn't have this something else on the form I used to fill out for London Business School at the end of the interview. But I used to, there's like additional stuff, and I used to look for this. And it was kind of something else. Okay, so let's say you have an 805 GMAT and you have the best profile ever because you've worked 19 hours a day, 7 days a week at a big 4 accounting firm. But if I interviewed you and you were like the most boring person in the world, a dry cookie, no hobbies, no volunteering, no friends, terrible communication skills, you're not going to pass this interview. Okay, so there's like something else. And from my perspective, the something else would be, would I want you in my class? Can I see you as a lifelong friend? And this doesn't mean you're the best candidate. This doesn't mean you have the top GMAT. This doesn't mean you've progressed at your workplace, 1% versus the rest. This doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean you've run marathons. It just means you're an interesting person. And I enjoy this conversation. And I think that if I had a beer with you, there's a lot of beers at London Business School. If I had a beer with you after school, I would enjoy this conversation. And I think that's also something very important that a lot of candidates kind of miss. And they're very focused on the achievements and very focused on the failures, but they're less focused on also just making the interview, presenting themselves as a nice person. Okay, how do you prepare for the actual interview? And again, this could be London Business School or INSEAD, Alumni Interview, or this can be any other business school. So I think these things are kind of obvious, but still. Do some research, okay, also on the school and maybe on the interviewer. And then just make sure you remember the motivation about the school. Make sure that the stuff that you're going to talk about will be aligned to the school. So, I really want to talk about Tesla. My dream is to work at Tesla. My dream is to work at Tesla R&D, and I want to influence Tesla's new cars. So So why are you going to London Business School and not to a California school where the headquarters of Tesla are? Okay, so you have to make sure to align things. Oh yeah, I'm going to London Business School because my wife's going to Duke next year. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, or I'm going to London Business School because I want to open my startup in China. Okay, so does that make any sense? Why aren't you going to a Chinese MBA program? Because you want to connect your Chinese startup with entrepreneurs from London or with investors from London. Okay, that makes sense. So you need to connect like your goals with the school club, with some courses, okay, like you probably did in your application. I always like to stay positive. Even if you're thinking something isn't going so well, just try and stay positive, smile. And don't be too negative also with your examples. Even when we'll talk about this, even if you're asked about your weakness, don't go, oh no, I'm terrible at, okay, like stay positive. We'll talk about weaknesses. And there's some non-verbal cues here. Great, eye contact, speaking slower than I speak, smiling, okay. Don't fidget. It's very difficult to give an interview to someone who keeps moving. Okay. Those are my preparation for the interview. So let's now talk about the actual answers that I want you to give. So what I think you should do is I think you should practice some answers. And the way I suggest you do it is use some kind of framework. We'll discuss 2 frameworks in this presentation. Look at our website. There's hundreds, probably thousands of questions that were asked in interviews. I'll put the link below here. And then prepare with a consultant, prepare with us. We're very good at interview prep. Prepare with your friend, prepare with a mirror. I don't know how, but definitely come prepared to the interview. Answer at least the common 9 questions, which we'll go through in the next slide, and also some other questions. And give lots of examples of your from your history. Most of them should be professional examples, but some can be personal as well. So using a framework, this is actually from the consulting world, but it really helps when you give an answer. I've 90% of candidates that I've seen use this STAR framework. It's quite good. Maybe I'll suggest a better framework soon. It's quite good. You kind of give a situation, then you kind of give the task and exactly what you were supposed to do, and then the action you took and some kind of result. It makes sense. If you don't know this, ignore it. Let me give you even a better one. But maybe I'll just give an example and then maybe a better one. So let's say the question is, again, we'll come to some questions, but tell me about an underperforming team member. So if I want to answer it in this STAR format, again, situation, task, action, result. So again, tell me about a team member that was underperforming. So the situation, in my previous role at British Telecom, a team member was missing deadlines. Okay, that's the situation. Okay, so again, situation. The second one is task. Yes. So what was the task? I decided to identify why he was underperforming. She or he was underperforming. Okay. And then action. What did I do? I scheduled a one-on-one meeting. Okay. And maybe I provided training. And what was the result? Amazing. Their performance went amazing, or they got fired, or whatever. Okay. But that's how you use this STAR framework. The reason I suggest using a framework is not because it's a must, because this way you won't forget anything. And many candidates that I interview, and today that I do interview prep for, it's strange, they kind of forget one of these sections in their answer. So they give me the whole answer, but they forget the result. Or they give me a very good what they did and a result, but they forget to kind of give me the background. So I have another framework. It's very similar. I don't have an original name, so if you have names in the chat, please give me names. I just called it Shimri Hollywood today, but please give me more interesting names. I'm going to look in the chat. I'm going to give bonus points to whoever gives me a better name. So very similar. But instead of situation, I like to call it background. And the reason I called it Hollywood is, in every story, there's a There's a put me in the situation, give me, where are we? So, an interesting way is, when I 2 years ago, when I worked in Coca-Cola, we got a very big in this example, I'll show you later, so put me in the right time, put me in the right company, explain to me who was against who, give me the background. Now, this story has to be interesting. And that's why I'm really missing this word in the STAR framework, which is complication, okay? Because if the story was, 2 years ago, my boss gave me an assignment. I did the assignment, and there was a great result. That's the most boring story I've ever heard in my life, okay? But if you give me some kind of complication, like in any Hollywood story, okay, guess what? The detective is, no, don't go there, but guess what? I was given this project, but I only had 2 weeks to deliver. But my team member was underperforming. But I had no history in working on real estate in Zimbabwe. Okay, that's a complication. Okay, and then what you did. Okay, so then obviously give me the action or what you did to address this complication. And I used to like the word quantifiable result. The result is great, but if you tell me the project went really good, that's like not a good enough result. But if you tell me the project went really good and the client was so happy, they paid for another project worth $2 million, that's a quantifiable result. Okay, let me just give you an example. If it's a failure, also tell me what you learned from this experience, very important. Okay, so here's my alternative framework. So the background, yes, as a team leader at British Management, at BT, I managed a small team, and there was a high-stake project, okay? This is the background. But then, what's the complication? One team member was underperforming. What did I do? Okay, I made it even nicer here. I had a one-on-one meeting, and then it turned out to be, a time management issue, so I've kind of found the exact issue that was causing the issue, this team member to underperform. I provided mentorship. I reassigned some tasks, things like that. And then what's the quantifiable result? The quantifiable result is that within a few weeks, as you can see, 4 weeks, that's so good. The performance improved. Okay, they met all the deadlines and the project was delivered on time. So, that's kind of a quantifiable good result. Okay, so that's kind of a framework. And now I'm just going to go through this is my last slide, but we're going to talk about it quite a lot. And it's kind of the common 9 questions that ARINGO have found in interviews. We've gone over 5,000 interviews. Okay, so we have a lot of interviews in our intelligent report bank. And these are the most common questions. Shall we start? Okay, so I'm going to talk about them a lot. Again, you can ask me questions in the chat and I will try and answer. Let's go. First question, walk me through your resume. Okay, now this is a 50-50 question. A lot of times interviewers have your resume in front of them, have your application, and kind of feel they know you. And then they might jump into, okay, I've read your resume. Okay, so first of all, you can take into account they read it. And why MBA? Okay, so they might jump some questions. But again, at least 50% of alumni interviewers, like at London Business School and INSEAD, will actually start with this question. So prepare for it. How do you answer walk me through your resume? They have your resume in front of them. So if you're just going to read your resume, that's a bit silly. Okay, they have it in front of them. So how do we make this different? First of all, time allocation. I would answer this question. This is the longest answer you can answer. And I would answer it around 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, that's kind of a decent amount of time. It can take 2, it can take 4.5, but that's kind of a decent amount of time, 3 or 4 minutes to answer this question. Second thing is I would answer it in some kind of chronological order. There's no right or wrong. Okay, so do it how you feel comfortable. But again, you can't jump from at 18 I did this, at 25 I did this, then it's but actually at 23, then at 30, you have to be some kind of, there has to be some kind of order. So one order would be reverse chronological order. Okay, so today I'm a product manager at Google. 2 years ago I was a junior product manager, and 4 years ago I was an engineer. And 6 years ago, I finished my university. Okay, that's some kind of reverse chronological order. Makes total sense. A chronological order would be, okay, let me start from 18. I went to university, then I graduated, I went to PwC, then I joined Ernst & Young. Okay, it doesn't matter which way you go, but just have a nice order. That's the first thing. Second thing, very important, remember they have your resume. So why am I repeating everything? Don't. Your interviewer doesn't want to know what you have done because he can just read it. They want to know, and this is where you can add value, why you did these things. Why did you choose to study economics? Why did you choose to go and study abroad? Why did you take a job in a Big Four accounting firm? Why did you join McKinsey? Okay, so don't just say what you did, but also say, after university, I really wanted to broaden my horizon, and I actually joined the Navy, and on a 3-year management rotation program where I knew I would see many countries and learn many managerial disciplines. So that doesn't just say, after the university, I went to the Navy. That kind of explains why you did it. After 2 years at PwC, I decided I wanted to move to consulting. So far, I was kind of consulting on accounting cases, and now I wanted to move to strategic consulting, and that's why I joined Bain Consulting. Okay, so it's not just about what you did, but it's also mainly why you did these moves. And my third tip, again, first is the structure, second is the why. My third tip is, you can kind of end this question with, a tip to the interviewer about what to ask you in the next question. How do you do that? If you say something like, and now I'm ready for the next stage in my life, or, now I feel I've reached the peak at my current job and I'm ready for the next stage or ready for the MBA, this will kind of make the interviewer say, so why MBA? So I really like that kind of ending. Obviously, you don't have to end with now I'm ready with, but it would be nice to kind of explain why you're here today, even if you weren't asked. So this brings us nicely to question number 2, which is why MBA? And this is quite an easy question. Why is it easy? Because you wrote it in your essays and you answered it in your video interview question number 1, why London Business School program, which also answers why MBA. So we kind of answered it before, and we said it's very different from person to person. But also here, I suggest, first of all, you can definitely answer some generic things. I want to take some time off and I want to have an international network. You can say some very specific things about you. I want to, I need this education platform to support my transition from consulting to the industry, or from being in a tech job to being a business leader. Okay, so you can also explain about yourself, why you want an MBA. And so again, some generic things and some things about yourself. And here is a tip which is completely optional. If you feel that your answer is quite short, or if you feel that the person interviewing you is like, you have good rapport, they're loving what you're saying, and you feel that you're not talking too much, and this answer and the rest of the answers shouldn't be over 1 to 1.5 minutes per answer. So again, if you've spoken more than 1.5 minutes, very bad in the why MBA. But if you feel that you've kind of covered, okay, why MBA, I want an international network, and I want to transition from what did I say before, from a tech job to consulting. You can also kind of throw in, although you weren't asked, maybe your career goals, or maybe why do you want this specific school. So this is very individual, and again, you should practice this and decide. But you can say, why MBA? Well, my career goal is to be a consultant. in order for me to achieve this, I feel that now I need an MBA to do ABC. So that's one way to answer why MBA, although no one asked me about my career goals. I started with that. Another thing that you could do is kind of answer why London Business School or why INSEAD or why any other school in this question. Why MBA? Because, I want an international network and I want a transition and I want something else. And there's no better place to do this than London Business School or INSEAD. Again, I'm not going to give a whole answer here because I was asked why MBA. But I can say, and I can elaborate further if you want. Okay, so you kind of throw them maybe a cue to ask you, okay, so why London Business School or why INSEAD? So those are two things that you can, again, kind of throw in to the why MBA. Completely optional, and it really depends on how long your answer is and what kind of rapport, what kind of communication you're feeling from the alumni. Do they kind of want to hear more, or do you feel maybe concise answers are better for this specific interview? Okay, why do an MBA now? This is actually a funny question. When I was in an interview, I didn't used to ask it because I felt that it was quite obvious. But I've seen it more and more being asked. So let's prepare an answer. Okay, and remember when we said, walk me through your resume, I said, and at the end, you can kind of say, and now I've reached a stage in my career where I feel, and you can say the same thing in the why now. Okay, so you can kind of go back a bit and say, well, as I told you before, I have about 6 years of experience in a Big Four accounting firm. And I also tried for 1 year to open a startup that wasn't very successful, but I learned from it a lot. I now feel that an MBA, this is the right time to do an MBA because, I've kind of reached the glass ceiling in my position and I'm not too senior yet, but post MBA, I'll have the right tools to go and open my firm again, a new entrepreneurship firm or whatever. So kind of tie it obviously to your personal experience. A 24-year-old can say why MBA now, and a 44-year-old can say it, but tie it to yourself and try and prepare this like, why now? And a very bad answer would be, I feel a bit young, but I thought I would try. No. Or I tried 2 years ago, but I didn't manage. I thought I would try again. No. A good answer would be, I've reached the right peak in my career where I feel now is the best possible time to leave for a year or a year and a half or 2 years if you're going to the US, and do an MBA and then return to the professional career that I can describe. Okay, so the why now is very important. Here we come to a super, super easy question again, because you've written this in your application. If you haven't, it's a very bad application, which is why our school? Okay, why London Business School? Why INSEAD? Know your stuff, okay? Do some research. Know why you want to apply to London Business School, why you want to apply to INSEAD. Know the name of a professor, a name of a club that interests you. Know the locations, okay? I know it sounds strange, but I was preparing someone for INSEAD, and obviously it just was by mistake, but he said because he wants to be close to Geneva. INSEAD's in France, not in Switzerland. There's closer schools to Geneva than INSEAD. So know the location, obviously, but know the school. Try and mention kind of, like we said, a professor or a club or a reason that you want the school. A good, check out the first presentation that we did on London Business School versus INSEAD. This is number 3. And I talked there about the length of the program. And London Business School has a flexible length of program. You can complete the MBA in 15 to 21 months. That would be a good reason to why London Business School, because I'm not sure how long I want to do the program. I want a flexible length of program. I want a flexible program with lots of electives. London Business School has 90 electives, and I would love to do 3 out of the 7 entrepreneurship electives. For example, managing the growing business by, okay, that's how much knowledge you need to have on each business school. So you need to prepare 3 or 4 things on every school and kind of explain why you want London Business School or INSEAD. Okay, another easier question, don't worry, we're getting into the harder questions soon, is what are your career goals? And why is this easy? Because you've discussed this in your application. Very important is to be consistent to the application. And like I said before, if your LinkedIn says something very different than the CV, that's going to be an issue. If your post-career goals are very different than what you wrote in your essays, or even a bit different, that might be an issue. So read your essays and try and repeat that. My tip to the essays, I think we discussed this in our previous presentation, number 2, is your goals should be connected to your past and should be connected to what you want to achieve from your London Business School or INSEAD MBAs. So I think in the previous presentation, I gave an example of a waiter that became a shift manager, that became a restaurant manager, and he wants the MBA and he wants London Business School because his dream is to open a chain of restaurants in London. Okay, that makes sense. But if you were a waiter that became a shift manager and your dream is to be a NASA astronaut, that doesn't make any sense. So it does make sense maybe to you, but not to London Business School admissions or INSEAD admissions. So practice your career goals and make sure that they're aligned to what you wrote in the essays. And that's all I have to say. Okay, here are the tougher questions. And now, what are your 3 strengths? This is quite a tough question that isn't usually asked in the application. INSEAD probably covers a lot of this in the very, very long INSEAD application. And how do you answer these? How do you answer this question? So the first thing I could answer is you can be very modest and you can say well, I'm not sure what my strengths are, but if you ask someone at my workplace, I'm assuming they would say this, So without, talking about myself, this is probably what John would say. Another way to say that in a very modest way is well, actually, at our workplace, we have reviews every 6 months. And this is what I heard in my latest review. Okay. And that's it's not me saying, this is what my boss said about me. So that's a very nice way to kind of answer your strengths. And what would those strengths be? Well, again, this is very individual. So just, whatever your strengths are, mention those. A nice strength, apart from you being excellent, would be something social. That means, I'm very social, or my door is always open. I'm very collaborative. I'm a good team member. I'm a good team listener. Okay, and not just I'm very good at what I do. I'm very technical, and I'm very good at big numbers. Okay, no. So what you're saying is you sit in an office by yourself, and you don't talk to anyone. That's a bit less good. So a strength that I would try and mention is something social. Okay, but again, a nice way to say it is in my feedback, this is the feedback I received. Same about the weaknesses. What you can say is yes, I'm sure I have some weaknesses. Here are some areas that I think that I was asked to strengthen, or I discussed with my manager in the feedback session or something like that. Mention 1 or 2 weaknesses, okay? Don't mention now 10 weaknesses. And my strategy here is a bit delicate, okay? There's actually 2 ways to answer a weakness question. And I say one is to shoot yourself in the leg. Yes, one is a bad idea, which is to say something really bad about yourself. Well, a big weakness is I just don't get along with people. Okay, that's not good. A big weakness is, I'm just not good at presenting things, and I'm just rubbish at it. And every time I present, people leave the room and laugh at me, okay, or whatever. So don't say something really bad about yourself. That's option number 1. Yes, say something bad. So option number 2 is saying something less bad. It might sound a bit corny. Okay, I work too hard. Okay, I know that sounds a bit strange, but to say something not so bad, plus to make sure to say that this happened not yesterday, a while back, and you're addressing this weakness. So for example, yes, I did get some feedback once from my manager about 2 years ago that when I do presentations, I should tailor the presentation to the audience. What happened was I was presenting to some R&D teams a presentation, and it was very detailed. And then I presented the same presentation to very senior managers, and they kind of lost track because the presentation was too detailed. And my manager told me if I tailored it to the higher level, to the senior managers, I could have talked more about the high level and let's say the KPIs and not the technical details of how they're going to actually develop this project. And I took this very seriously. And the next presentation I did to senior managers, I actually tailored the presentation differently, and I got a lot of good feedback about it. So, I showed a kind of a weakness. It wasn't such a bad weakness, right? Like, I didn't tailor the presentation. Okay, not a big deal. But I've learned a lot about it, and today I present much, much better to senior managers. So that's a good way to show a weakness. Okay, this is kind of a funny question. And I haven't seen it a lot done by alumni, but definitely if adcoms interview you, they will be looking for this answer, even if they're not asking it directly. And the question is, okay, we were really impressed with you, whatever, and I'm a bit lazy as an interviewer. What do you think I should be worried about? Like, you give me the answer. So that's a nice. It's a nice question, and it's a bit of a trap, isn't it? Because again, if you say something bad, well, I think you should be concerned by my low GMAT of 500. Oh yeah, you have 500. I forgot about that. Yeah, let me tick here. Not good in academic, right? Like, you don't want to say something too bad. So this is actually a tough question to answer. There's lots of good answers for it. For example, let's actually say something positive. Let's say, well, I don't think you should be too concerned. I feel I'm very academic. I feel I have a good professional experience. I feel I'm very social. So if I were you, I would accept me. If you say that nicely, I think that's okay. Still, you can address one weakness that you feel you have, but quickly try and offer a solution for that. Okay, well, yes, I mean, I feel, you might be a bit worried that I'm a bit on the high side of the age. I'm 33, and I have 9 years of experience, where the average is 5. I promise you, I work very well with various people, young and old, and I feel like I could really be the glue of the community. So I don't see this as an issue, but I understand if you feel this is an issue. Another way to say that is, I studied in university, a while back. This was 9 years ago. And you might be concerned that, am I academic enough to study? So I want to assure you that although, I left university 9 years ago, I do lots of, I'm on many, I have a lot of Coursera courses, or I've signed up for an MBA boot camp to kind of get me back into analytical thinking and into kind of basic business studies. So that could be a concern, which I straight away answered with how I'm going to mitigate this concern. And the last is, do you have any questions for me? I mean, any interviewer, any good interviewer should show that he cares or she cares, and should ask you some questions, and should leave at the end time for you to ask them questions. Now, this is something very important and very hard for me to give advice on, which is, it really depends how the interview is going. So if the interviewer is, is on the phone all the time, and oh yeah, and he keeps maybe interrupting you, and maybe it's very busy, maybe you're meeting at their office, and the secretary is knocking on the door and you're calling them for the next meeting, or you can see the interviewer doesn't want to allocate you a lot of time. So maybe you can just say, wow, well, I can see you're super busy, so, I don't want to take too much of your time. I just have like maybe one quick question. I saw on LinkedIn that you're, also moved from legal to consulting. Maybe just have like 1 or 2 tips for me on that move. Okay. But if you feel this is a nice discussion, the interview is talking slowly and calmly, and there's an hour, and only 42 minutes have passed, or something like that. So now you can ask maybe 2 or 3 questions. Don't go over 3, and even 2 is usually enough. But you can definitely ask, I'm coming with my partner, and you told me in the beginning that you came with your partner, or, do you know, I don't know about you, but do you know about people that came with the partners? Maybe you can tell me a bit more about that, because I've done a lot of research on the school, but I've mainly spoken to students who came as singles. So I don't want you to show that you haven't done research on the school, but maybe this interviewer can give you some more advice. Or I've done a lot of research on the school. I really feel I know the school. I know a lot of the electives. How do you choose? There's so much to choose from. Maybe you can give me some tips on, how you chose the electives. So this is again going to the alumni and saying, tell me a bit more about your experience. But not like a general question about tell me about your experience, but it kind of gives the alumni a framework to answer you. Another question would be, not give me one tip, but it would be, it's very important for me to do a transition. Can you give me one suggestion when hopefully when I get in and I'm interviewing, how I do this transition? And then the alumni, it's great because you kind of give me the framework to say, oh, I know lots of people did the transition. They went to the consulting club or they did ABC. So kind of help the alumni and ask them kind of a easy question, not easy, but like that has a simple answer. And don't ask them like a very tough question. So how do you feel Brexit is going to, interfere with London Business School's average salary for alumni? I think there's some professors for economics that don't know the answer to what I just said. Okay, like Brexit and how will Trump affect the EU? Okay, like let's not ask the alumni, tough questions. Let's just ask questions which we're genuinely interested to hear their experience and their answer. So that was the big 9 questions. Okay. Just last slide, so we're nearly at the end. If you have any questions, please ask me. Here are some pitfalls, and they're kind of common pitfalls that we collected from all our interview experts at ARINGO. So the first one is lack of preparation. I mean, it sounds strange, but if I ask someone, why MBA? And they say, wow, that's such a good question. Let me think about it. That just shows that you haven't prepared. That's probably the most common question in every MBA interview. Why do you want to do an MBA? Okay, so please do some research. Don't come unprepared. Also for answers and also, for researching the program. Very important. Like we said, this time management, like I said at the end, if you see that the interviewer is kind of in a rush, maybe you need to rush things a bit. If you see the interviewer is kind of calm, you can answer calmly. But again, don't pass those kind of 3 to 4 minutes about walk me through your resume, or 1 to 1.5 minutes, again, kind of for 80% of the answers of the regular answers. So if you're rushing or you're rambling or maybe you're talking too much, I once asked someone to walk me through your resume after 26 minutes. Okay, I said, great, the interview's finished. And he said, what? We haven't even begun. I said, 26 minutes. I think we're finished. Okay, so, make sure you kind of stick to those times and also talk kind of calmly. And you can do this by practicing a lot. Like I said, kind of try and be positive. I put in negative body language, but it can also be in kind of a negative theme. Just try and be positive. Like, why are you applying to London Business School? Oh, because I got rejected from MIT and I'm so sad. That's the wrong answer, right? And also try and have a positive body language. I hate, and people hate arrogant people. Okay, so why MBA? Well, I was top in my class and I'm top in my company and I want to go to the top school to be the top and to make a lot of money. No, that's the wrong answer. Okay. Obviously, listen to the interviewer. Don't dominate the conversation. In most interviews, yes, you will be talking more than the interviewer. But again, let the interviewer talk as much as possible. I read some kind of research that the more the interviewer talks, the more the interviewer thinks the interview went well. So let them talk as much as possible. And also don't cut them, let them speak, let them finish. Okay. Lack of enthusiasm, I think that's very important to show the London Business School or INSEAD is your #1 school. Okay. And again, there's questions here, so great. Please ask questions. This is the last slide or one before last, and I'll answer all the questions. So thank you, Evelyn. I like the question. I'm going to answer it soon. And focusing on the past is also something. Try and talk about the present. Try and talk about your recent job experiences more. Don't talk too much about negative experiences. A lot of people told me, like, what's your biggest failure? And then they gave me like a 2-year failure, which was like, It just took the whole interview where I thought this was someone positive with lots of achievements to like a huge failure. You have to show interest. And then when I ask you then, like, okay, this has been a great interview. I'm here for you. Do you have any questions to me? I'm not, I'm genuinely here for you. I want to tell you about London Business School. I want to tell you about INSEAD. Ask me 1 or 2 questions. Show interest. Okay? 2 more pitfalls. Dishonesty. Again, this is something which I hope you won't do. The interviewer isn't looking for you. This isn't a facts check. I'm not looking to fail you. I'm not looking, oh, why did you do that? Oh, this doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to do that. But still, if something doesn't make sense in your story, that's going to be an issue. And if you said you're a senior manager at McKinsey, and I know that McKinsey don't offer a senior management position to a 21-year-old undergraduate, okay, this might be a post-MBA position. So that will be very suspicious for me, and I might ask about that. And if I find that you're kind of, dishonest, or there's some inconsistency in your story, that's going to be a huge issue, so be careful from that. And like I said, kind of poor listening skills. I'll show you my 5, but like not answering the question is a big issue. So this is my last slide, so start asking me questions and I'll answer all of them. But these are specific things that I less liked. Some are repeated from the interview we did with the interviewers. But again, I really, this was the last one. You remember when people don't answer my question. And when I used to say like, so, have you ever had a team member underperforming? Please tell me about this. And they used to say, yes. Then they used to tell me, a 3-minute story about something that they did amazing because they prepared a question, but an answer, but it just doesn't answer my question. That's a big issue. Okay, so you have to answer the question. Like we said, the length of the answers, 25, actually it was 26 minutes later. Okay, so show enthusiasm for your school. Okay, and if you're applying to London Business School and INSEAD and you were lucky enough to get 2 interviews, each school needs to understand that this is your number 1 choice. So, if I don't get into INSEAD, LBS is my backup. No, that's a very bad answer. Don't be late. Maybe, actually before that, in the same context, I actually know a lot of interviewers. And I try and keep it very professional. A lot of times interviewers ask me, did this guy work with you? I'll never answer that. But I actually had someone ring me, it was last week, and he said, did this guy work with you? I said, I don't answer that. He said, yeah, I'm really puzzled. I said, first of all, do whatever you want, but out of interest, what happened? And he said, well, he wrote me an email to schedule the interview. And the email said, I'm so excited to have an interview with you. I'm available next Tuesday between 2 and 2:30. Does that work for you? ? And that was already that was a bit of a signal, like he's not respecting my time. He's kind of dictating when the interview will be, instead of saying like, I'll be available on Tuesday afternoon. That works best for me. But if that doesn't work for you, I'll make time. The interviewee needs to kind of respect the interviewer's time. Second of all, he was late. Okay, an interviewer being late to an interview, bad sign. Okay, so be very respectful to the interviewer. I didn't have this too many times, but I've had a bit of an aggressive name dropping when I used to interview. Again, 2 or 3 times. John told me to say hello, wink, wink. I don't like that at all. Okay, why would you mention, you can mention I've spoken to John, and he get if you know an alumni or if you know a student that you spoke to research the school, definitely mention their name in the interview or send application. But don't kind of try and name drop and give me a hint that John told me or you. That's just too aggressive. I don't like that at all. Be humble. Very, very important. You have to remember there's some superstars interviewing for MBA programs. I've had F-16 pilots. I've had top 1% performers in huge companies. I've had entrepreneurs sell their startup to Google. Okay? And I'm not saying you're not one of these, but 99% of people aren't one of those 3. They're big 4 employees. They work in a big tech company or in a small tech company. They work in a family business. Okay, first of all, be humble about your story. and obviously make it impressive, but be humble. You got to this stage. That means someone read your application. It was interesting. They filtered less interesting applications. Your profile is interesting. Now stick to that story. Prepare to the interview. Don't make more than it is, and hope for the best. So those are my tips. That was the presentation. Yeah, if possible, that application did the talking. That's always important. Just before I answer some of the questions on the chat, this is my email. Feel free to ask me questions via email. Check out aringo.com. We have so many past interview questions and lots of ideas on how to answer questions. On the common big nine questions, as we call it, we have, I think, another 1,000 examples. We have real questions from various schools. So check us out on aringo.com. Whoever's leaving this session, thank you very much. I'm just going to check out the chat. So there is one good question there. A specific question about the interviewer set the interview for 75 minutes. That is pretty long. And should you expect something special because the interviewer has scheduled a 75-minute interview? And I'm going to also take this question to a general way. And what happens if they scheduled a 30-minute interview? Is that better or worse? And the answer is it's not better or worse. It's just what the interviewer decided to schedule for this interview. And as you can see, I'm a bit of a talker. When I used to interview for London Business School, yes, my interviews used to be very long, probably an hour and a half each. But I've also seen people that interview 20, 30 minutes, and their acceptance rate, the people that they passed on and got accepted, was very similar to mine. So the length doesn't have any correlation to your chances. But yes, a longer interview means that there might be 20 questions in the interview, and a short interview means there might be 8 or 9. But again, there's no correlation to your chances. So just to summarize, again, thank you very much. This was a bit more focused on INSEAD and London Business School, but I think you can definitely take this interview advice to any MBA interview. I've really enjoyed this presentation. As you can see, I love talking about interviews. Check us out on aringo.com, and you can watch the other presentations online. Thank you very much. And hope to see you all soon at INSEAD and London Business School MBAs. Bye for now.